Imagine rolling out of bed one morning and realizing that the cash stashed away in your drawer, whether Iraqi dinar or Vietnamese dong, had suddenly shot up in value. That's the dream thousands have held onto for years, waiting for what's been called the big RV or revaluation. Now, with Donald Trump stepping back into the White House in 2025, talk about these currencies is heating up again. Everyday folks, speculators, and longtime holders of dinar or dong are asking one big question. Could this finally be it? In this video, we're breaking down Trump's second presidency, what it could mean for Iraq and Vietnam, and what you should realistically expect if you're holding these currencies. Stick around until the end, because this breakdown might change how you look at your investment and save you from some of the most common mistakes people make. Let's set the stage with the basics. The Iraqi dinar, or IQD, is Iraq's official money. As of now in 2025, $1 trades for around 1,300 dinars. That means if you bought 1 million dinars, you'd be spending about $770. On the flip side, Vietnam's dong VND trades at roughly 24,000 dong per US dollar. That makes a million dong cost you less than $50. These numbers have stayed pretty steady for years. But what keeps hope alive is the belief that these currencies are sitting way below their true value. Supporters of the RV theory think Iraq and Vietnam will eventually crank up the value dramatically. That idea has built a massive community across the US, with some estimates suggesting millions are quietly holding bundles of these notes, waiting for the big day. So where does Trump come into play? The short answer is his tough and often unconventional stance on trade and currency manipulation. During his first term, Trump regularly went after countries he accused of keeping their currencies artificially low. His reasoning was simple. If a country makes its currency cheap, it can export more goods to the US at lower prices, which he saw as unfair. Trump branded himself as the guy demanding fair deals, forcing countries to play by rules that benefited American workers and industries. Iraq and Vietnam both fit the mold of economies that could land in Trump's spotlight. Iraq, because of its oil power, and Vietnam, because it's climbing fast as a manufacturing alternative to China. That's why currency holders are watching his every move now that he's back in charge. Its economy lives and breathes oil. Nearly 90% of the government's revenue comes from it. In recent years, Iraq has been fixing up infrastructure, developing new oil fields, and slowly rebuilding its banking system. International businesses have started to take notice again and are trickling back in. On the surface, these are all positive signs for the dinar. But currencies don't skyrocket just because a country wants them to. Their value comes down to trust, inflation, trade balances, GDP growth, and political stability. Iraq has moved forward, but it still faces corruption, shaky politics, and heavy reliance on unpredictable oil prices. Those realities make a sudden surge in the dinar extremely unlikely, no matter who sits in the Oval Office. Vietnam tells a different story, though just as fascinating. Its economy has been booming for decades, largely because of manufacturing exports and a steady flow of foreign investment. Vietnam has become one of the top destinations for global companies wanting to diversify away from China. The government has modernized infrastructure, encouraged global partnerships, and pushed reforms to keep things stable. All of this seems like the perfect recipe for a strong dong. But here's the catch. Vietnam actually gains more by keeping its currency weak. A cheaper dong makes their exports more competitive worldwide, which helps fuel the country's growth. So while the economy is strong, a sudden overnight jump in value is very unlikely. The government deliberately manages the dong to stay low and keep that advantage. This is where Trump's influence circles back in. He has never been shy about using tariffs, sanctions, or direct trade talks to pressure countries into changing their economic strategies. In a second Trump term, it's likely he'll continue putting pressure on countries to play fair with their currencies. For Iraq, that could mean trade deals tied to oil and more support for financial reforms. For Vietnam, it could mean the U.S. deepens its shift of supply chains out of China and into Vietnamese factories. Both scenarios could boost these economies in the long run. But here's the key. They would strengthen gradually, not create the sudden RV many investors dream about. One of the biggest myths we need to clear up is how revaluation would even work. Some investors picture central banks just flipping a switch one day and announcing that their currency is instantly worth 10 or even 100 times more. That makes for an exciting story, but it doesn't line up with how currency markets function. Currency values are tied to fundamentals, and those change step by step, not overnight. A lot of people bring up Kuwait as an example, pointing to how its currency bounced back after the Gulf War. But that was a unique, war-driven situation that simply doesn't compare to Iraq or Vietnam's reality today. Appreciation is possible, but it would almost certainly be gradual. So, let's talk possible scenarios. If Iraq continues boosting oil production, improving its financial system, and cleaning up politics, the dinar could appreciate little by little over time. More international investment would also add support. For Vietnam, if U.S. companies keep moving supply chains there, the dong could slowly get stronger too. But again, Vietnam's government has every reason to keep it controlled, so don't expect a sudden leap. Trump's policies might help these conditions develop, but they won't trigger an instant windfall. There is another piece of this puzzle worth pointing out: Trump's consistent push for a strong U.S. dollar. His America First approach has often favored policies that boost the U.S. economy directly. A stronger dollar, however, makes foreign currencies look weaker by comparison. So even if Iraq and Vietnam both benefit from long-term growth, the relative strength of the U.S. dollar could limit just how high their currencies climb. This is a factor a lot of hopeful investors tend to overlook when imagining life-changing profits. So what's the most realistic outcome for dinar and dong holders? Think gradual, not instant. If both countries keep making progress, Iraq with political and oil reforms, Vietnam with steady manufacturing growth, their currencies could gain value slowly. That means any returns would likely be years in the making. Smart investors know it's about patience and fundamentals, not quick riches. Both economies have opportunities ahead, but the jump will be measured, not explosive. Another thing to keep in mind: practical challenges. Even if you're sitting on stacks of dinar or dong, cashing them in isn't always straightforward. Most U.S. banks don't handle these currencies, so you'd need to go through specialty exchanges, which usually charge steep fees. Those fees can chip away at any profits. And storing big bundles of currency at home comes with its own risks: theft, loss, or even damage. It's important to weigh those realities against the dream of an RV payday, and let's talk red flags. Over the years, plenty of dealers and so-called gurus have claimed they know the exact date or inside scoop on when the RV will happen. Some push hard sales tactics, trying to convince people to buy huge amounts of currency fast. That's dangerous. The truth is, nobody knows if or when a massive revaluation will ever occur. Reputable sellers will always remind buyers of the risks and never guarantee profits. If you hear promises of overnight wealth, that's your cue to walk away. So, coming back to Trump in 2025, what's the bottom line? His policies could encourage trade deals, attract U.S. investments into oil and manufacturing, and reduce reliance on China. All of that could help Iraq and Vietnam grow healthier economies. But the fantasy of waking up rich overnight is still just that: a fantasy. For investors, the smarter play is patience, caution, and realistic expectations. One positive takeaway for dinar and dong holders is the bigger global trend. Countries around the world are diversifying their trade partners and looking for fresh opportunities. Iraq, with its oil, remains critical in energy markets. Vietnam, meanwhile, is becoming a core piece of the global supply chain puzzle. Those factors don't guarantee an RV, but they do create a foundation for stronger economies over the long haul. If Trump leans into these partnerships, the gradual outlook could be favorable. So what should you keep in mind as someone holding these currencies? First, the basics. Dinar and dong aren't worthless, but they're not lottery tickets either. Second, know the risks, from tricky conversions to scams. Third, pay attention to real economic developments. Iraq stabilizing politically. That matters. Vietnam winning more manufacturing away from China. That matters too. These real-world moves will shape the future value far more than rumors. To wrap this up, here's the takeaway. Trump's second presidency might spark opportunities, apply pressure, and even shift global trade patterns. But no president can wave a magic wand and create an instant RV. If you're holding these currencies, you're part of a large and hopeful crowd. The smart ones, though, are staying informed, realistic, and patient. Growth may come, but it will be slow, steady, and built on actual progress. Stay sharp, avoid the hype, and keep your eyes on the fundamentals. Because in the currency game, knowledge and patience are the true power tools.